Bosnian Serbs don't call Omarska a concentration camp. Come in, they challenged ITN, and see it for yourselves. Under Serbian armed guard for our own protection, a 3-day journey ended here, at the gates of a disused mine in northern Bosnia. Here we were shown only several hundred of the 2,500 prisoners, all Muslim men, at Omarska we were told to be interrogated. Those found guilty of fighting Serbs were then sent to prisoner of war camps, the innocents to refugee camps. This is all we saw of the prisoners and of Omarska itself. They never spoke. The only voices, those of the guards ordering them to eat faster and leave. How are you treated? What are the conditions, I asked. I don't want to tell lies. I can't speak the truth. Thank you for coming. We were told that the army does not control Omarska, that these prisoners are the responsibility of the civil authorities and local militia. We sought an explanation from the camp commandant. Would you describe this as a prison camp, a transit camp, or a refugee camp?
No, this is not the camp, this is the center, the transit center. Omarska and Trnopolje, both the centers, not camps.
And then the men left, back to wherever they'd come from, away from our cameras and questions, hidden from the United Nations and the Red Cross, who've been denied access to Omarska, hidden until now from the world. We were not allowed to follow them to their living accommodation, what appeared to be the larger of the two buildings, to see the other 2,000 detainees and how they live.
What's your reason? Just to try to do my best here. To show us where they live.
When Dr. Karadzic, why are you not fulfilling Dr. Karadzic's promise to us?
He promised us something else and said, you can do this and that and not that. We've seen nothing. We've seen one dining hall and 80 prisoners.
And so we left, our hosts fulfilling their promise to show us the second camp, Trnopolje, where 2,000 refugees are living. We were not prepared for what we saw and heard there.
How long have you been here?
Several hundred said that they'd arrived from Omarska that morning or from another detention camp, released to this refugee center after days, sometimes months of interrogation. We asked if the allegations of beating in the detention centers were true.
I can't say much about that. So people were hungry, that's true.
I'm not sure that I'm allowed about that. You know, can you understand me?
Tell us the truth.
250.
What happened?
In this vicious civil war where atrocities against Serbs as well as Muslims occur daily, finding the truth isn't easy. We ourselves saw no evidence of beatings on any refugee here, and we only heard the allegations. Allegations even the camp doctor seemed unable to substantiate in front of our Serb hosts.
Does he get any cases here of people who've been beaten from the other camps?
Neki slučaj da su bili neki koji su tučeni u drugom kampu, recimo podavedeni od ima tako. Yes.
Many?
Da ih ima mnogo ili...
Should be happy speaking another language?
Yes.
I was able, however, to smuggle out a roll of film, and the man who took these pictures and gave it to me said he would be killed if caught. He begged me to check that in 3 days he was still alive. And amongst all this horror, some small touches of humanity.
This is my friend.
Like 19-year-old Igor, a Serb, who now stands guard over the friends he grew up with. Muslims from the village they once shared as children, now homeless, persecuted and behind wire. Igor took us to another side of Trnopolje, where we met some who'd come here by choice, those who'd run for their lives to this pitiable camp. Amongst them 13-year-old Sana, who said he was used as a human shield by extremist Muslims on his own side. The Serbs have taken his mother.
Frightened?
Yes, a little.
Where do you want to be? If you could shut your eyes and be anywhere, where would you like to be?
Kad bi jako zažmurio i kad bi poželeo negdje da odeš, gdje bi volio da odeš sad?
Volio da odem za majkom, tamo da nađem.
To follow my mother, to find my mother, where is she?
No one we spoke to knew why they'd been brought here, whether they were prisoners, refugees, or what lay in store for them. In this civil war, there is no sense and a great deal of horrifying cruelty. Penny Marshall, News at 10, Northern Bosnia.
Ian Williams reports now on the evidence Channel 4 News has gathered from inside the Serbian camps.
These are the Muslim prisoners of Umarska. In small groups, under heavy Serbian guard, they are ushered into the canteen for their single meal of the day. Most have been here for 2 months. They say they don't know why, but they were rounded up from their homes. They were too frightened to talk about the way they have been treated and the conditions in which they have been kept. Conditions which have been hidden from the world, as the Serbs have denied access here to the United Nations and to the International Red Cross. Their prison is an old mining complex outside Banja Luka in northern Bosnia. In an office above the canteen, the camp commandant and a spokeswoman for the local Serbian authorities said they had 2,500 of what they called internees, who were being interrogated as possible Muslim fighters.
No, this is not the camp, this is the center, the transit center. Umarska and Trnopolje, both the centers, not camps.
The prisoners were being brought to the canteen from a large industrial building in the center of the mining complex. It too was under heavy guard, and we asked to be allowed to look inside. But in spite of promises of openness from the Serb Bosnian leader, Dr. Karadzic, we were told we could see no more. Why are you not fulfilling Dr. Karadzic's promise to us?
He promised us something else and said, you can do this and that and not that.
Our armed escort made it clear our visit was over.
We are now being asked to leave this camp, having seen nothing more than the canteen. We have been told that Dr. Karadzic's promise, while good to us, does not carry any weight here.
As we were moved on, soldiers told us the army did not control the camp, which they said was run by the local authorities and militia. We had asked to be taken to a second camp at Trnopolje in the same area, to which several hundred prisoners from Umarska had that day been transferred, and which has also been at the center of allegations of atrocities. Conditions at this camp were appalling. In 100-degree heat, hundreds of men were forced to eat and sleep outside in a field, behind barbed wire. Their meager rations consist of a small hunk of bread and a bowl of soup every day. Here too, they said they had been rounded up, whole villages emptied of their men, and they were afraid. So can you tell me anything about the conditions in which you are being kept here, or is it difficult?
I'm not sure that I'm allowed about that. You know, can you understand me?
People here being beaten?
Here? No. Here, no. Here. I rather wouldn't talk about that.
Can you tell us anything about the conditions that you were being kept in and the treatment of the people you were with?
Well, that was a hard time, what I could say.
We heard stories of people being beaten and people disappearing. Did that happen?
Well, I can't say much about that. We just came here
From another camp?
from another camp, and we didn't know what's the condition here. We accept a little bit more better, like breather.
What was it like before?
Oh, it was terrible.
One of the prisoners asked us to check on him in several days' time to see that he hadn't been punished for speaking to us. And away from the camera, there were allegations of routine beatings and executions. Several prisoners told us of retaliatory killings. One instance in which they claimed 150 of their fellow prisoners had been killed following the death of 10 Serbian soldiers in a Muslim village. We were told people had been beaten to death, and we were asked to smuggle a film out of the camp. The pictures show severe injuries, apparently as a result of beatings. In the makeshift medical centre, there were cases of scabies, malnutrition and diarrhea. Local doctors said they were chronically short of medicine and drugs. Among them was a Muslim doctor. We asked him whether there had been any cases of beatings.
Ali imate slučaj da su bili neki koji su tučeni u drugom kampu, recimo poravljeni od unutar. Jesu.
Many?
Da ih ima mnogo ili...
On one side of the camp were refugees who were here simply because they have nowhere else to go, their homes having been destroyed. They have been told they can go as soon as they have a guarantee of a home outside Serb-controlled Bosnia. In Banja Luka, prisoners' wives have been queuing for days for news of their men and to register as refugees because they too have nowhere to go. On the roads to Banja Luka, Muslim villages lie empty and deserted, homes destroyed. If there is, eventually, freedom for the men in the detention centres, it's unlikely to be in Serb-controlled Bosnia. Ian Williams, ITN, Northern Bosnia.
Paddy Ashdown touched down in the outskirts of Sarajevo, determined to see for himself what was going on in the Bosnian refugee camps. His first stop was at Serbian headquarters, where he was met by the leader of the Bosnian Serbs, Dr. Karadzic. Mr. Ashdown said he wanted to visit Gorazde, a mainly Muslim town which has been under constant Serbian attack. Dr. Karadzic said it was too dangerous. Instead, Mr. Ashdown was taken to Kula prison camp. Here, Muslim prisoners told him they were well treated, even though they were held against their will. With the international media standing by, Dr. Karadzic took the opportunity to tell elderly and sick prisoners that they would be allowed to go home. The first, he said, of thousands of such detainees who would be released in a goodwill gesture. The other prisoners at the camp looked on unimpressed, while Paddy Ashdown admitted his trip could serve Serbian propaganda purposes. Paddy Ashdown insists he's setting the agenda on this mission, but already it's clear just how dependent he will be on his Serbian hosts and just how hampered he may be by the dangers of this terrain. Caroline Kerr, ITN, at the Kula prison camp near Sarajevo.
On the road to Trnopolje, a now all too familiar sight, Muslim refugees fleeing their villages. Sabrina Redic said her husband had been shot and her house torched by advancing Bosnian Serb troops. When did they burn your house? Her terror is in part about what lies ahead at Trnopolje. Will she and her children be safe at a Serbian-run camp? The Red Cross are going to help you against bullseye. They will be there, they will be there. At Trnopolje, the International Red Cross had just arrived. This is the first time they've been allowed inside. For the moment, Sabrina and her children are safe. For Trnopolje's changed. There's now some food getting through, although the queues are long, and there's also shelter and clothes provided by the Serbian authorities. And the barbed wire fence which shocked the world has been torn down from its posts. All this has been done in advance of the simultaneous arrival of the Red Cross and our cameras. For certain, conditions here have improved, these refugees are safer. But the Red Cross have still not been allowed to enter any other camps, and our visits are closely supervised. Whispered rumours of rapid transfer of prisoners from the area abound. We couldn't find any proof of this. But here at least there's hope. Inside the camp hospital, the doctor who last week stood petrified was now welcoming, the relief obvious.
Are you asking if we can talk?
He now knows there's international concern for him and people like him. Much more needs to be done, he says, but conditions have improved.
Skinuli su žicu, počeli su da nositi malo hrane.
Suddenly after that they moved the wire around. They start bringing more food.
Mogu slobodno da šetaju, posjete mogu dolaziti.
Going outside and
Muslimani mogu ulaziti u voz, prije nisu mogli.
Muslims can go to the train, and before they couldn't go on the train. And their families, they can come now and visit them. It's much, much better.
But camp life is still, by any humane standard, absolutely appalling. There's a desperate shortage of medicine and hundreds of patients to treat, amongst them those who claim they were beaten by their Serbian guards. The men responsible for running this camp and others are now willing to admit on camera mistakes were made.
So it was some mistakes, and now it's the whole situation, but they are going to clear up that situation.
What have they discovered? What were the mistakes? How many people were involved?
Šta su prekršili?
Rat je rat. Ljudi se malo napiju, malo
war. Some people they lose control and then they beat some people and
8 people have been arrested in connection with maltreatment in the camps. We were shown evidence by our Serbian hosts, without whom access to these refugee centres would be impossible, that equivalent atrocities have been inflicted on their own side. They said this video showed some of the 6,000 civilian Serbs killed by Muslims and Croats in the war. They denied they were using terror to force Muslims from their villages. But there is increasing evidence that they are. This Muslim village, Kazaraj, for example, once housed 26,000. There's no one left. Many are in these camps, men like 26-year-old Sead Hukanovic, held up by his elder brother. He was a television repairman before the Serbs took him to a massacre.
You've been in prison in a massacre for 70 years. Did you think you were going to die when you were inside?
and he's almost dead.
The International Red Cross yesterday gave out registration forms to the 2,000 now in Trnopolje. A small start in one camp. There are hundreds of others they need to reach. For civilians on all sides, because of their ethnic backgrounds, are being killed in this war. And these camps are only for some of the survivors. Penny Marshall, News at 10, Northern Bosnia.